What if everything the galaxy believed about humanity was wrong? What if the most feared species in known space became legends not through conquest, but through a single moment of unexpected compassion? This is the story of how 3 human soldiers changed the course of galactic history forever. Not with weapons of war, but with an act so simple, so fundamentally human, that it shattered every preconception the universe held about Earth's children. In the depths of space, where mercy is weakness and kindness means death, humanity was about to prove that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the courage to save those who would see you dead. The emergency klaxons of Kepler Station pierced through the artificial atmosphere like screaming banshees, their red warning lights casting hellish shadows across the metal corridors. Commander Sarah Chun pressed herself against the bulkhead, her tactical visor displaying a nightmare of incoming Zephyrian warships. 47 vessels, each one capable of reducing the mining station to cosmic dust within minutes. "How long until the evacuation ships arrive?" she asked through her comm, watching the countdown timer tick away precious seconds. 23 minutes, Commander, came a static-filled response from Lieutenant Rodriguez in the command center. The civilian transports are moving as fast as they can, but the docking mechanisms are damaged from the initial attack. Sarah cursed under her breath. 23 minutes might as well be 23 hours. The Zephyrian fleet would be within firing range in less than 15. She looked down the corridor where the last groups of human miners and their families were being herded toward the evacuation points. Children crying, adults trying to maintain composure while terror filled their eyes. The humans of Kepler Station were expendable in the eyes of the Galactic Council. This remote mining outpost, tucked away in the disputed territories between human and Zephyrian space, had been written off the moment long-range sensors detected the approaching fleet. No military backup was coming. No reinforcements were en route. Humanity had learned long ago that in the vast political game of galactic powers, they were still considered the newcomers, the unwanted guests at a party that had been going on for millennia. Sarah's tactical team consisted of only 12 soldiers, all that remained of the station's defense force after the surprise attack 6 hours earlier. They had managed to hold the Zephyrians at bay long enough for evacuation procedures to begin, but everyone knew it was a losing battle. The question wasn't whether Kepler Station would fall. It was whether they could buy enough time for the civilians to escape. "Commander Chun," a voice crackled through her earpiece. It was Dr. Marcus Webb, the station's chief medical officer. "We have a situation in Medical Base 7. You need to see this." Sarah frowned. Of all the times for a medical emergency, this was certainly the worst. "Doctor, unless someone is dying, it's going to have to wait. We have bigger problems right now." "That's just it, Commander. Someone is dying. Several someones, actually, but they're not human." The word stopped Sarah in her tracks. Non-humans on Kepler Station? That was impossible. The mining operation was strictly a human enterprise, established in territory that was supposed to be neutral, but everyone knew leaned toward human interests. No other species had any reason to be here. "Explain," she said, already changing course toward the medical bay. 3 Zephyrians, badly injured. Their escape pod crashed in a docking bay 12 about an hour ago. My guess is they were trying to flee the battle, and their navigation systems malfunctioned. Sarah felt her blood run cold. Zephyrians, the same species that was currently trying to obliterate everything she had sworn to protect. The same species that had declared humanity a plague upon the stars, and had spent the last decade systematically pushing human colonies out of disputed space. The same species that, according to every military manual she had ever read, took no prisoners and showed no mercy. She reached Medical Bay 7 and found Dr. Webb standing outside the sealed doors, his face pale and drawn. Through the reinforced windows, she could see 3 figures lying on medical beds, their distinctive blue-scaled skin and elongated limbs making their species unmistakable. Even unconscious, they looked dangerous. Their natural musculature was designed for a world with higher gravity than Earth, making them physically superior to humans in almost every way. Their pod's distress beacon was broadcasting on emergency frequencies, Dr. Webb explained. "That's how we found them. 2 are unconscious from blood loss. The 3rd keeps drifting in and out. I managed to stabilize them, but barely." "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Dr. Webb met her gaze steadily. "Because you're the ranking officer, and I need to know what you want me to do with them. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Here were three enemy combatants, helpless and at their mercy, while overhead there are people prepared to rain destruction down on everything the humans had built. The logical choice, the strategically sound choice, would be to let them die. Or better yet, interrogate them for information about Zephyrian fleet movements and battle plans. Have you learned anything from the Conscious One? Sarah asked. She hasn't spoken, just stares at me with those golden eyes of theirs. I don't think she trusts us not to hurt her. Can't imagine why, Sarah muttered. She activated her comm unit. Rodriguez, what's our status on the evacuations? 18 minutes until the transports can undock, Commander. The Zephyrian fleet will reach optimal firing position in 12 minutes. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to think. 12 minutes. Not enough time to save everyone. Probably not enough time to save anyone. The mathematics of the situation were brutally simple. And yet here she stood, looking at three enemy soldiers who would probably kill her without hesitation if their positions were reversed. Doctor, she said slowly, what would it take to move them? Dr. Webb blinked. Move them? Commander, these Zephyrians are in critical condition. Moving them without proper medical support would likely kill them. But it could be done. Well, yes, but Dr. Webb stopped mid-sentence as understanding dawned in his eyes. Commander, you can't be serious. We barely have enough space on the evacuation transports for our own people. And you're talking about using precious resources to save enemy combatants. Sarah stared through the window at the three Zephyrians. The Conscious One, a female she thought, though it was hard to tell with their species, had turned her head and was looking directly back at her. Those golden eyes held no malice, no hatred, just pain, fear, and something that looked almost like resignation. How long have they been at war with us? Sarah asked quietly. The Zephyrians? About 10 years of active hostilities, but tensions go back. No, Sarah interrupted. How long have they been told that humans are monsters? How long have they been taught that we're savage, unreasonable creatures who destroy everything we touch? Dr. Webb was quiet for a moment, probably since first contact, same as we've been told about them. Sarah nodded. That was exactly what she had thought. Decades of propaganda on both sides, each species painting the other as the ultimate evil. The Zephyrians believed humans were bloodthirsty warmongers who expanded across the galaxy like a virus, consuming resources and destroying peaceful civilizations. Humans believed Zephyrians were cold, calculating predators who viewed other species as tools to be used and discarded. What if both sides were wrong? Commander, Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. Urgent now. Zephyrian fighters are launching attack runs. They'll reach the station in 8 minutes. We need to get everyone to the transports now. 8 minutes. Sarah looked at the three Zephyrians again. In 8 minutes, this entire section of the station would be nothing but twisted metal and vacuum. These three would die, along with anyone else who couldn't make it to the evacuation ships in time. Dr. Webb, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them, start prepping those three for transport. Commander, I have to advise against. That's an order, Doctor. Sarah turned away from the window and began walking toward the command center. And Doctor, make sure they understand we're trying to help them. As she hurried through the corridors, Sarah's mind raced through the logistics of what she was about to attempt. The evacuation transports were already overcrowded. Medical equipment would have to be left behind to make room for the portable life support systems the Zephyrians would need. Some humans might have to wait for a second evacuation run that might never come. She reached the command center to find Lieutenant Rodriguez coordinating the final evacuation phases. His face was grim as he looked up from the tactical display. Commander, we've got a problem. Transport 3 is reporting mechanical failures. They can't achieve full capacity. How many people does that leave behind? 47 civilians and 6 military personnel. Sarah felt her heart sink. 53 people who would die because of mechanical failure and bad timing. She thought about the 3 Zephyrians in Medical Bay 7, taking up space that could save human lives. The weight of command had never felt heavier. Commander, Rodriguez continued, there's something else. We've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. Their fleet commander has issued orders to take no prisoners and leave no survivors. This isn't just a military strike. It's meant to be a complete extermination. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Complete extermination. The Zephyrians weren't just trying to capture the station or secure the mining rights. They wanted to send a message to humanity that expansion into disputed space would not be tolerated. Every man, woman, and child on Kepler Station was meant to die as an example to others. And yet, 3 of their own were lying unconscious in the medical bay, completely dependent on human mercy for their survival. 6 minutes until impact, Rodriguez announced. All evacuation transports report ready for departure. Sarah activated the station-wide communication system. Her voice echoed through every corridor, every room, every hiding place where terrified humans waited for salvation. This is Commander Chun. Final evacuation is beginning now. All personnel report to designated transports immediately. We have 6 minutes to save as many lives as possible. She paused, looking out through the command center's observation windows at the approaching lights of Zephyrian fighters. In the distance, she could see the evacuation transports warming up their engines, ready to carry the survivors to safety. I want everyone to know, she continued, that today we have the opportunity to show the galaxy who humans really are. Not the monsters that others believe us to be, but people who value life, all life, even when it costs us dearly. Today we prove that mercy is not weakness, but the highest form of strength. Rodriguez stared at her in confusion. Commander, what are you talking about? Sarah smiled grimly and activated her personal comm. Dr. Webb, are our patients ready for transport? As ready as I can make them, Commander. But I still think this is madness. Maybe it is. Get them to Transport 7. And, Doctor, make sure they're conscious when we reach safety. I want them to understand exactly who saved their lives. As alarms continued to blare and the countdown to destruction ticked away, Sarah Chun made a choice that would echo through galactic history. Not because it was strategically sound or militarily advantageous, but because it was fundamentally, undeniably human. The Zephyrians approaching Kepler Station believed they were about to eliminate a nest of human savagery. Instead, they were about to witness something that would change the way the entire galaxy viewed Earth's children forever. Transport 7 was never meant to carry Zephyrians. The life support systems hummed with an unfamiliar strain as Dr. Webb worked frantically to adapt the atmospheric mixture for beings whose physiology was radically different from humans. The 3 rescued aliens lay strapped to modified medical gurneys, their blue-scaled skin looking almost ethereal under the transport's emergency lighting. Sarah Chun stood at the rear of the passenger compartment, watching through the porthole as Kepler Station grew smaller in the distance. Right on schedule, the first explosions began to blossom across the mining platform superstructure. The Zephyrian fleet was making good on their promise of total destruction. Commander, came Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice through the comm. We've got all transports away safely. Total casualties, 17 confirmed dead from the initial attack, 3 missing and presumed dead. Final count shows 2,847 civilians and 127 military personnel successfully evacuated. Sarah closed her eyes in relief. It could have been so much worse. But then Rodriguez continued. However, we've got a new problem. The Zephyrian fleet is pursuing us. Long-range scanners show they're not content to just destroy the station. They want to eliminate the evacuation convoy entirely. Through the porthole, Sarah could see the sleek forms of Zephyrian pursuit fighters closing the distance between themselves and the slower civilian transports. The evacuation ships were heavily loaded, their engines already pushed to maximum capacity. There would be no outrunning the enemy fleet. All transports, this is Commander Chun, she broadcast on the convoy's command frequency. Prepare for combat maneuvers. Military vessels formed defensive positions around the civilian ships. Commander, Dr. Webb's voice called from behind her. She's awake. Sarah turned to see that the female Zephyrian had regained consciousness and was staring directly at her. Up close, the alien was even more imposing than Sarah had expected. Despite being restrained and clearly weak from her injuries, there was an unmistakable intelligence in those golden eyes, along with something that looked almost like curiosity. Sarah approached slowly, her hands visible and empty. Can you understand me? The Zephyrian's head tilted slightly. When she spoke, her voice was melodic but carried an undertone that made Sarah's bones vibrate slightly. I understand your language, human. The question is why I'm still alive to hear it. Because we're not the monsters you've been told we are. Sarah replied simply. The Zephyrian's eyes narrowed. You speak lies. Humans are destroyers, consumers. Your kind spreads across the galaxy like a plague, taking what is not yours and leaving destruction in your wake. Is that what your people taught you? Sarah asked. It is what your actions have proven. Sarah gestured toward the porthole where the burning remains of Kepler Station were still visible. Your fleet just destroyed a civilian mining operation, killed innocent people who were just trying to make a living in the disputed territories. How does that make us the destroyers? The Zephyrian was quiet for a moment, her golden eyes studying Sarah's face intently. Kepler Station was built on territory that belongs to the Zephyrian Collective. Your people knew this when they established their illegal mining operation. It's disputed territory, Sarah countered. The Galactic Council has never formally assigned it to any one species. The Council, the Zephyrian said with what might have been discussed, is dominated by species that benefit from conflict between others. They profit from our wars while pretending to maintain peace. Sarah blinked. That wasn't the perspective she had expected to hear from an enemy combatant. In fact, it was uncomfortably close to opinions she had heard expressed by human military leaders in private moments. What's your name? Sarah asked. The Zephyrian hesitated. I am 3rd Commander Zelike of the vessel Storm's Edge. 3rd Commander? That's a high rank for someone flying an escape pod. Zelike's expression darkened. Storm's Edge was destroyed by human fighters during the initial engagement. I barely managed to evacuate my wounded crew before the ship's core went critical. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Your wounded crew? The 2 unconscious Zephyrians. They were your responsibility. They were under my command, yes. When our ship was lost, I chose to use the escape pod to save them rather than myself. The similarity to Sarah's own decision wasn't lost on her. A commander choosing to risk everything to save subordinates, even when the logical choice would be self-preservation. She looked at the 2 unconscious Zephyrians on their medical gurneys. Dr. Webb had them stabilized, but they were clearly in critical condition. Dr. Webb, Sarah called. What's their prognosis? The male, I think it's a male, anyway, has severe internal bleeding that I've managed to stop temporarily. He needs surgery that I can't perform here. The other one has a massive head injury. Without proper neurosurgical equipment, I can't say if they'll recover. Zelike had been listening intently. Why are you telling me this? Why do you care about their survival? Sarah considered the question carefully. Around them, the transport shuddered as it adjusted course to avoid incoming fighter fire. Through the comm system, she could hear reports from other ships in the convoy. Defensive fire, evasive maneuvers, the controlled chaos of a running battle. Because, Sarah said slowly, every life has value. Even the lives of people who would kill me if our positions were reversed. Zelike's golden eyes widened slightly. You truly believe that, don't you? Zelike hesitated, and, for the first time, Sarah saw uncertainty in the alien's expression. Zephyrian doctrine teaches that mercy toward enemies is a form of weakness, that it invites further aggression and endangers one's own people. And what do you believe? Before Zelike could answer, the transport lurched violently as an energy blast passed close to their hull. Emergency lighting flickered, and, somewhere in the distance, Sarah could hear the sound of atmosphere escaping through a small breach. Commander Chunta Bridge, Sarah called into her comm status report. Minor hull damage on Deck 3, came the reply from the transport's captain. Sealed automatically. But we've got bigger problems. The pursuit fighters are closing fast, and they're targeting our engines. Sarah looked out the porthole again. The Zephyrian fighters were sleek, predatory shapes against the star field, moving with deadly precision as they harried the slower evacuation transports. In the distance, she could see larger ships approaching, destroyers, and cruisers that would make short work of the civilian convoy once they arrived. How long until we reach the hyperspace jump point? Sarah asked. 17 minutes at current speed. But the fighters will be in optimal firing range in less than 5. 17 minutes. Sarah thought about the 2,974 human lives depending on those 17 minutes. Then, she looked at the 3 Zephyrians in her transport. Enemies who had become her responsibility through an act of mercy that might end up dooming everyone. Zelike, Sarah said, your fleet out there. They're going to kill every human in this convoy. That is their mission, Zelike replied quietly. Including children, families, people who have never fired a shot in anger. Zelike's expression shifted slightly. War is not concerned with the innocence of individuals. But you are. It wasn't a question. Sarah had seen the way Zelike looked at her unconscious subordinates, had heard the pain in her voice when she talked about her lost ship. This wasn't a heartless killer. This was a leader who cared about her people. Commander, Dr. Webb interrupted. The male Zephyrian is crashing. I'm losing him. Sarah watched as Dr. Webb worked frantically over the unconscious alien, using human medical techniques to try to save a life that belonged to a species currently trying to exterminate them all. The irony was almost overwhelming. Can you save him? Zelike asked, and Sarah heard genuine concern in her voice. I don't know, Dr. Webb replied honestly. His physiology is different enough that I'm mostly guessing. I need more time, better equipment. Time. The one thing they didn't have. Sarah activated her comm again. All transports, this is Commander Chun. Reduce speed by 15% and route additional power to shields. Commander, came the alarmed reply from Transport 3. Reducing speed will allow the fighters to close distance. We'll be sitting ducks. Trust me, Sarah replied, though she wasn't sure she trusted herself. She was about to gamble nearly 3,000 lives on a desperate hope based on nothing more than the look in an alien's golden eyes. Zelike, Sarah said, I need you to contact your fleet. The Zephyrian stared at her in shock. You want me to call for help? To coordinate an attack on your own ships? No, Sarah said quietly. I want you to tell them about us. About what you've seen here. About humans trying to save Zephyrian lives instead of taking them. Zelike was silent for a long moment. Around them, the transport continued to shudder under evasive maneuvers as Zephyrian fighters closed the distance. Dr. Webb worked over the dying alien soldier, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought to save a life that logic said wasn't worth saving. They will not listen, Zelike said finally. Fleet Commander Thekvor believes humans are incapable of genuine mercy. He will assume this is some form of deception. Then, prove him wrong, Sarah said. Show him that everything he believes about humans is a lie. Zelike looked at her subordinate on the medical table, then at Dr. Webb working to save him, then back at Sarah. Why? Why risk everything for people who are your enemies? Sarah thought about all the answers she could give. About military strategy and diplomatic opportunities and the long-term benefits of showing mercy to defeated enemies. But in the end, she settled on the simplest truth. Because it's the right thing to do. The words hung in the air between them as the transport raced through space, carrying humans and Zephyrians together toward an uncertain fate. Outside, fighters closed in for the kill, their weapons charging for what should have been the final blow against the fleeing humans. Instead, Zelike closed her golden eyes, took a deep breath, and reached for the communication controls. The communication array on Transport 7 wasn't designed for Zephyrian frequencies, but Dr. Webb had managed to jury-rig a connection using salvage components from the alien's escape pod. Zelike's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the controls, her golden eyes reflecting the uncertainty she felt about what she was about to do. Fleet Commander Thekvor. She spoke in the transmitter, her melodic voice carrying across the void between the fleeing convoy and the pursuing fleet. This is 3rd Commander Zelike of the Storm's Edge. I am transmitting from aboard a human evacuation vessel. The response came almost immediately, crackling with static and barely contained fury. Zelike, you live. How is this possible? Our sensors showed the destruction of your escape pod. Sarah moved closer to the communication station, watching Zelike's face carefully. The Zephyrian commander was choosing her words with extreme care, and Sarah could see the internal struggle playing out in her expression. The pod crashed on the human station, Zelike replied. My crew and I were badly injured. Fleet Commander, I must report something that contradicts our intelligence about human behavior. There was a pause, and when Thekvor spoke again, his voice was dangerously low. Explain. The humans rescued us, Zelike said simply. They provided medical care and evacuated us along with their own civilians when you began the bombardment of their station. The silence that followed was so complete that Sarah wondered if the communication link had failed. Around them, the transport continued to shake as Zephyrian fighters drew closer, their energy weapons charging for devastating strikes against the human convoy. Finally, Thekvor's voice returned, cold with suspicion. That is impossible. Humans do not rescue enemies. This must be some form of deception. Sir, I am looking at a human doctor who has spent the last hour trying to save the life of security leader Vashtar. They have allocated precious medical resources and transport space to keep us alive when they could have easily left us to die. You have been compromised, Thekvor declared. The humans are using you to spread propaganda in a desperate attempt to avoid destruction. All ships maintain attack vectors. Eliminate the convoy as planned. Sarah felt her heart sink as she watched the tactical display. The Zephyrian fighters were moving into final attack positions, their weapons fully charged and target locks confirmed. In less than 2 minutes, the first wave of devastating energy blasts would tear through the convoy's shields and hull plating. Fleet Commander Zelike tried again, her voice carrying a note of desperate urgency. I swear by the sacred depths of Zephyrpron that what I tell you is truth. The humans saved our lives when they had every reason to let us die. Enough! Thekvor's voice boomed through the communication system. You speak heresy, Zelike. Humans are destroyers, not saviors. They are incapable of genuine mercy. Dr. Webb looked up from where he was working on the unconscious male Zephyrian. Commander, he said quietly, I'm losing him. His life signs are failing. Sarah made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She activated the communication controls and spoke directly to the Zephyrian fleet commander. Commander Thekvor, this is Commander Sarah Chun of the Human Evacuation Convoy. I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. The comm channel exploded with what Sarah assumed were Zephyrian curses. When Thekvor's voice returned, it was filled with rage. Human, how dare you use our communication frequencies? Your deception ends now. This isn't deception, Sarah said calmly. This is the truth. Right now, on this transport, my chief medical officer is fighting to save the life of one of your people. Not because we hope to gain anything from it, but because it's the right thing to do. Lies. Humans know nothing of righteousness. Sarah looked at Zelike, who was staring at her with an expression of amazement. Zelike, describe what you see around you. The third commander took a shaky breath. I see 23 human civilians who gave up their seats on this transport to make room for myself and my injured crew. I see a human doctor who has been working for over an hour to save the life of security leader Vashtar, using techniques I do not understand but which appear to be keeping him alive. I see. Her voice faltered for a moment as she looked around the transport's passenger compartment. Human families huddled together, children clinging to their parents, adults trying to maintain calm in the face of approaching death. And yet, not one of them had complained about sharing their space with enemy soldiers. I see people who should hate us, but instead show us mercy. Programming, Thekvor declared. They have programmed you with false memories. Dr. Webb suddenly straightened up from his patient. I've got a pulse, he announced. Vashtar's stabilizing. Zelike's golden eyes widened in shock. She leaned over the medical gurney and spoke in rapid Zephyrian to the barely conscious male. His response was weak, but clearly audible through the comm system. Thekvor's voice went silent. Security leader Vashtar confirms third commander Zelike's report. Came a different Zephyrian voice through the communication array. Fleet commander, this is Navigation Master Kefal. Vashtar says the humans saved them. He says they are treating him with genuine care. Sarah could hear heated discussion in the background of the Zephyrian transmission. Multiple voices arguing, some demanding continued attack, others expressing confusion and uncertainty. The convoy had gained perhaps 2 more minutes of life, but the fighters were still closing in. Fleet commander, Sarah said, you've spent decades believing that humans are monsters. I understand that. We've been told the same things about your people. But right now, we have an opportunity to prove that both sides have been wrong. You speak of opportunity while your ships flee our justice. Thekvor replied, but Sarah noticed his voice had lost some of its earlier certainty. I'm not asking you to trust us, Sarah continued. I'm asking you to trust your own people. Third Commander Zelike risked everything to save her crew when her ship was destroyed. Does that sound like someone who would lie to you now? Through the porthole, Sarah could see the Zephyrian fighters had slowed slightly. They were still in attack formation, but something had changed in their approach pattern. Zelike, Thekvor's voice came through the comm, softer now, but still tinged with suspicion. You swear by the sacred depths that the humans have shown you genuine mercy? I do so swear, Fleet Commander. More than mercy, they have shown us kindness when they had every reason for hatred. Dr. Webb was now working on the second unconscious Zephyrian, adjusting the portable life support systems that were keeping all three aliens alive. Sarah realized that every piece of equipment being used to save Zephyrian lives was equipment that couldn't be used to help injured humans if the attack continued. "Commander Chun," came Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice through the convoy's command frequency. "The Zephyrian fighters have stopped their attack approach. They're holding position approximately 5,000 kilometers out." Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. "All ships, maintain current course, but be ready for evasive maneuvers." Fleet Commander, Navigation Master Kefal's voice came through the Zephyrian communication channel. "I am receiving similar reports from other ships. Several more human escape pods have been detected, but instead of destroying them, the humans appear to be rescuing the occupants." Sarah blinked in surprise. She hadn't known about other Zephyrian survivors, but apparently her order to show mercy had been interpreted broadly by the other evacuation ships. Across the convoy, humans were risking their own safety to save enemy lives. "This is impossible," Thekvor muttered, but his voice carried confusion rather than anger now. "Sir," came another Zephyrian voice, younger and uncertain. "What are your orders?" "The humans are not attacking. They're not even trying to escape efficiently. They're helping our people." Sarah realized this was the critical moment. Everything balanced on what happened in the next few seconds. She activated the communication array one more time. "Fleet Commander Thekvor, I'm going to do something that I hope will convince you that we're telling the truth. I'm sending you the complete communication logs from our evacuation. You'll see the arguments my officers had with me when I ordered them to save your people. You'll see how many humans objected to using precious resources on enemy soldiers. And you'll see that I ordered it anyway, because saving lives is more important than winning battles." She transmitted the data package and waited. Through the porthole, she could see the Zephyrian fleet maintaining their position, weapons charged but not firing. The entire convoy hung, suspended between life and death, waiting for one alien commander to decide whether mercy deserved mercy in return. When Thekvor's voice came back through the comm, it was barely a whisper. "By the sacred depths, it's true. Your own people argued against saving us, and you did it anyway." "Because it was right," Sarah said simply. The silence stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then Thekvor spoke again, his voice carrying an authority that Sarah could feel even across the vast distance between their ships. "All vessels of the Zephyrian Expeditionary Fleet, this is Fleet Commander Thekvor. Stand down from attack positions. Repeat, all ships stand down." Sarah felt her knees go weak with relief. Around her, she could hear similar sounds of relief from the human civilians and crew members. They had done it. Somehow, impossibly, they had done it. But Thekvor wasn't finished speaking. "Commander Chun, I must speak with you further. What you have done today, it changes everything we believed about your species. If humans are capable of showing mercy to enemies, then perhaps peace is possible after all." Sarah looked at Zila K, who was staring at her with an expression of complete amazement. The third commander's golden eyes were bright with what Sarah realized were tears. "Fleet Commander," Zila K said into the communication array, "I request permission to accompany the humans to their destination. I believe there's much we need to learn from them." "Permission granted, Third Commander. In fact, I believe we all have much to learn." As the convoy resumed course toward the hyperspace jump point, now escorted by the same Zephyrian fleet that had been trying to destroy them minutes earlier, Sarah realized that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. A single act of mercy had opened a door that had been locked for decades. The question now was whether both species would be brave enough to walk through it. The medical facility on Haven Station was unlike anything Zila K had ever seen. Where Zephyrian medical centers were efficient and sterile, designed for function over comfort, the human facility somehow managed to be both highly advanced and warmly welcoming. Soft lighting cast gentle shadows across walls decorated with images of landscapes from various human worlds, and the air carried the faint scent of something Zila K had learned was called lavender. 3 weeks had passed since the evacuation from Kepler Station, and the galaxy had not stopped talking about what happened there. The footage from the convoy's communication logs, showing humans debating whether to save Zephyrian lives, then doing it anyway, had spread across every major news network in known space. The Galactic Council had called emergency sessions. Military leaders on both sides were demanding explanations. And somehow, in the middle of it all, Zelike found herself standing in a human medical facility watching Dr. Webb check on security leader Vashtar's recovery. The bone grafts are taking well, Dr. Webb was saying, his instruments scanning the healing fractures in Vashtar's leg. Another week, and you should be able to walk without assistance. Vashtar, who had been unconscious for most of the evacuation, was still adjusting to the reality of being alive at all. His golden eyes, so similar to Zelike's own, tracked Dr. Webb's movements with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. Doctor, Vashtar said in carefully practiced human speech, why do you continue to treat me? The immediate crisis has passed. I am no longer dying. Dr. Webb paused in his work and smiled. It was an expression that had taken Zelike considerable time to understand. The way human facial features could convey warmth and genuine caring without any accompanying words. Because healing isn't just about stopping someone from dying, Dr. Webb replied. It's about helping them live well. Besides, I took an oath to do no harm and to heal whenever possible. That doesn't change based on what species my patient happens to be. Zelike translated the exchange for Navigator 3rd Keflon, the third member of their original crew, who was recovering from her head injury in the adjacent bed. The young Zephyrian's cranial ridges were still partially bandaged, but her cognitive functions were returning to normal. I still do not understand, Keflon said in their native language. Why do they continue to waste resources on us? We are not their people. Perhaps, Zelike replied thoughtfully, that is what we need to understand. For humans, being their people seems to include anyone who needs help. The door to the medical bay opened, and Commander Sarah Chun entered, carrying what appeared to be official documents. Her expression was serious, but Zelike had learned to read the subtle differences in human facial expressions well enough to see that this wasn't bad news. Third Commander, Sarah said with a respectful nod, I've received word from both the Human Colonial Authority and your fleet commander Thekvor. They want to meet. Zelike felt her chest tighten with anticipation. Meet? For what purpose? To talk. About what happened at Kepler Station, about the war, about whether there might be a way forward that doesn't involve destroying each other. Dr. Webb looked up from his patient charts. You mean actual peace talks? Not just a temporary ceasefire. Sarah's expression was carefully neutral. I mean actual talks about ending this conflict permanently. What happened 3 weeks ago has changed how both sides see each other. Military leaders on both sides are asking questions they never asked before. Zelike moved to the window that looked out over Haven Station's main concourse. Below, she could see something that would have been unthinkable just a month ago. Humans and Zephyrians walking together, talking, even sharing meals in the station's common areas. The sight still filled her with wonder. How many of my people are here now? She asked. 47 Zephyrian personnel, Sarah replied. Survivors from various ships damaged in recent conflicts, all brought here for medical treatment. Your fleet commander has been allowing wounded Zephyrians to be transferred to human facilities for care we can't provide. It was an extraordinary development. Zephyrian military doctrine had always taught that accepting help from enemies was a sign of weakness, that injured warriors should either recover using their own resources or die with honor. The fact that Thekvor was allowing wounded Zephyrians to receive human medical care represented a fundamental shift in thinking. Commander Chun, Vashtar said from his medical bed, his human speech improving daily. I have been wondering about something. When you decided to save us, you knew it might cost human lives. How did you justify that choice to yourself? Sarah considered the question carefully. Zelike had noticed that humans often took time to think before answering important questions, unlike Zephyrians, who were trained to respond quickly and decisively. I didn't justify it, Sarah said finally. I just did what felt right. Sometimes the most important decisions aren't about logic or strategy. They're about what kind of person you want to be, what kind of species you want to represent. But you are a military commander, Keflon interjected, her translator device converting her words to human speech. Your first duty must be to your own people. My first duty is to protect innocent life, Sarah corrected. All innocent life. That includes my own people, but it doesn't exclude others. Dr. Webb was nodding along with the conversation. That's one of the fundamental principles of human medicine, he added. We treat the injury, not the politics. A broken bone doesn't care about species or nationality. Zelike found herself thinking about her own training, about the years of conditioning that had taught her to see humans as inherently violent and aggressive. Standing here, Watching Dr. Webb work with gentle patience to heal Zephyrian wounds while Sarah discussed ways to prevent future conflicts, she realized how wrong her preconceptions had been. "There is something you must understand," Zelike said to Sarah. "What you did at Kepler Station, it has created what we call a ripple effect throughout Zephyrian space. Young officers are questioning orders. Veterans are sharing stories about human behavior that contradicts official doctrine. Fleet Commander Thekvor is not the only one who has been forced to reconsider what we believed about your species." Sarah's eyes widened. "I didn't realize the impact had been that widespread. Neither did your military leaders, I suspect. But news of humans risking their own lives to save Zephyrian enemies has spread through our communication networks faster than official attempts to suppress it. Many of my people are asking the same question I asked myself in that medical bay. If humans are capable of such mercy, what else have we been wrong about?" Dr. Webb finished his examination of Vashtar and moved to check on Keflon's neurological responses. As he worked, he spoke quietly to Sarah. "Commander, I've been thinking about the peace talks. If they're serious about ending this conflict, they're going to need more than just diplomatic agreements. They're going to need proof that both species can coexist peacefully." "What do you mean?" "I mean projects, joint operations, shared goals that require cooperation instead of competition." Dr. Webb gestured around the medical facility. "Look what we've accomplished here in just 3 weeks. Zephyrian physiology is different from human, but not so different that we can't treat their injuries. And the medical knowledge has helped us improve treatment for several human conditions we thought were incurable." Zelike had been following the conversation, and she suddenly understood what Dr. Webb was suggesting. "You propose that our species work together." "I propose that our species prove they can work together," Dr. Webb corrected. "Before anyone signs any peace treaties, they should see evidence that humans and Zephyrians can be partners instead of enemies." Sarah was quiet for a moment, but Zelike could see the idea taking shape in her mind. Joint medical facilities, shared research projects, maybe even joint exploration missions to neutral space. Exactly. Let the politicians see what cooperation looks like before they try to negotiate the terms of peace. Vashtar struggled to sit up in his bed, his healing injuries still causing him obvious discomfort. "Third Commander," he said to Zelike, "what you describe, it would require both our species to overcome centuries of mistrust and prejudice." "Perhaps," Zelike replied, "but what we have learned here suggests that such mistrust may have been built on false foundations." She turned to look at Sarah. "Commander, when your people first encountered my species, what were you told about us?" Sarah's expression darkened slightly. "That you were cold, calculating predators who saw other species as tools to be used and discarded. That you were incapable of emotional attachment or genuine loyalty. And yet you see me here, caring for my injured crew members and forming what I believe humans call friendship with former enemies. Just as you were told humans were savage destroyers who consumed everything in their path," Sarah replied. "And yet here you are, watching us heal your people while working to prevent further conflict." Dr. Webb was listening to the exchange with growing excitement. This is exactly what the peace negotiators need to hear. Proof that the propaganda on both sides was wrong. Evidence that both species are capable of more than just war. The communication panel in the medical base suddenly activated, and Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice filled the room. "Commander Chun, please report to communications immediately. We're receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Commander Thekvor." Sarah looked at Zelike. "Would you like to hear what your commanding officer has to say?" Zelike nodded, though she felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. Everything that had happened over the past 3 weeks had been unprecedented. There was no way to predict how the Zephyrian military hierarchy would ultimately respond to their current situation. As they left the medical bay and walked toward the communication center, Zelike reflected on how much her worldview had changed since that moment when she first regained consciousness on Transport 7. She had been prepared to die rather than accept help from human enemies. Instead, she had discovered that the humans were not enemies at all. They were simply people who had been lied to about her species, just as she had been lied to about theirs. "Commander," she said to Sarah as they walked, "regardless of what Fleet Commander Thekvor has decided, I want you to know that what you did, what your people did, has given me hope for the first time in years." Sarah smiled, and Zelike was struck again by how much meaning humans could convey with such a simple facial expression. "Third Commander," Sarah replied, What you did, choosing to trust us, choosing to speak honestly to your fleet, that took more courage than I think you realize. You risked everything to tell the truth about what you experienced. As they approached the communication center, both of them understood that they were about to learn whether their acts of mutual trust and mercy had been enough to change the course of galactic history, or whether the forces of tradition and fear would ultimately prove too strong to overcome. The answer would determine not just the fate of the current conflict, but the future relationship between their two species for generations to come. The communication center of Haven Station had been hastily modified to accommodate both human and Zephyrian technology. Banks of monitors displayed star charts, fleet positions, and communication frequencies from across the galaxy. As Sarah Chun and Zila K entered the room, they could see Lieutenant Rodriguez coordinating with technicians from both species to establish a secure connection with the Zephyrian fleet. Connection established, Commander, Rodriguez reported. Fleet Commander Thekvor is standing by, along with representatives from the Human Colonial Authority. Sarah took a deep breath and activated the communication array. The main screen flickered to life, showing two separate images. Fleet Commander Thekvor, standing on the bridge of his flagship, his imposing form radiating authority even across the vast distance of space, and Admiral Patricia Morrison of the Human Colonial Authority, her expression carefully neutral but alert. Fleet Commander, Admiral, Sarah began formally. Thank you for agreeing to this joint communication. Thekvor's golden eyes focused on Zila K, who had moved to stand beside Sarah. Third Commander Zila K, I have read your complete reports regarding the events at Kepler Station. What you described challenges everything we believed we knew about human nature. Sir, Zila K replied, her posture rigid with military discipline despite the weeks she had spent among humans. I can only report what I have witnessed. The humans saved our lives when they had no obligation to do so, and they have continued to provide care and assistance without asking for anything in return. Admiral Morrison leaned forward slightly. Commander Chun, your actions at Kepler Station were unprecedented. Some of my officers have questioned whether you exceeded your authority by using military resources to save enemy combatants. Sarah felt a flash of defensiveness, but she kept her voice steady. Admiral, I made the decision I believed was right given the circumstances. I would make the same choice again. I'm not criticizing your decision. Commander, Morrison replied. I'm trying to understand it. What you did has created ripple effects throughout both militaries. We're receiving reports of similar incidents across the conflict zones, humans and Zephyrians helping each other instead of fighting. Thekvor nodded gravely. Admiral Morrison speaks truth. Just yesterday, one of our patrol ships assisted a damaged human freight vessel that should have been considered an enemy target. The patrol commander cited the precedent of Kepler Station in his report. Sarah blinked in surprise. Sir, I had no idea the impact had spread so far. Nor did any of us, Thekvor admitted. But it has forced both our militaries to confront a difficult truth. If our soldiers are capable of showing mercy to enemies, perhaps our enemies are not as different from us as we believed. Dr. Webb entered the communication center, followed by security leader Vashtar, who was walking with only minimal assistance despite his recent injuries. The Zephyrian's presence on the screen seemed to surprise both Thekvor and Admiral Morrison. Security leader, Thekvor said, his voice carrying obvious relief. It is good to see you recovered. Fleet Commander, Vashtar replied, offering the traditional Zephyrian military salute. I live because humans chose to save my life when logic dictated they should let me die. This experience has taught me much about the nature of true strength. Admiral Morrison was studying the interaction carefully. Dr. Webb, what has your experience been treating Zephyrian patients? Dr. Webb moved into view of the communication screen. Admiral, it's been remarkable. Despite physiological differences, the fundamental principles of medical care apply to both species. More importantly, I've had the opportunity to work with Zephyrian medical specialists who were initially brought here as patients. Their knowledge has helped us make breakthrough advances in treating neurological trauma. You have worked together? Thekvor asked, his surprise evident. More than that, Dr. Webb replied. We've learned from each other. Navigator 3rd Keflon, who suffered a severe head injury during the evacuation, has actually been helping us develop new techniques for treating similar injuries in humans. Her unique perspective on neurological function has been invaluable. Sarah could see the impact of Dr. Webb's words on both military commanders. The idea of humans and Zephyrians not just coexisting, but actually collaborating and improving each other's capabilities was clearly revolutionary for both species. Fleet Commander Zila K said, "I request permission to share something with Admiral Morrison." Thekvor gestured for her to proceed. Zila K turned to face the human admiral directly. "Admiral Morrison, for 10 years, my people have been taught that humans are incapable of honor, mercy, or genuine compassion. We were told that you saw other species only as obstacles to your expansion across the galaxy. Yet in these past weeks, I have witnessed human children sharing their food with injured Zephyrian warriors. I have seen human engineers working around the clock to modify life support systems for alien physiology. I have watched Commander Chun risk her career and the lives of her own people to save enemies she had never met." Zila K paused, her golden eyes moving between the two military leaders on the screen. "If we have been so wrong about humans, what else have we been wrong about? What other opportunities for understanding have we missed because we chose to see enemies where we might have found allies?" Admiral Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a thoughtful weight. "Third Commander, that's exactly the question we've been asking ourselves. The footage from Kepler Station has been analyzed by every military psychologist in the human fleet. Their conclusion is that the behavior shown by Commander Chun and her crew represents something fundamental about human nature, not an aberration, but an expression of core values we've always held. And what conclusion have your analysts reached about our species?" Tikfor asked. "That Zephyrian behavior during and after the Kepler incident shows a capacity for loyalty, honor, and adaptability that our previous intelligence assessments completely missed. Your willingness to question long-held beliefs and adapt to new evidence suggests a wisdom we never credited your people with possessing." Dr. Webb stepped forward. "If I may, Admiral, Fleet Commander, I think both your species have been victims of their own propaganda. You've spent so long preparing for war that you forgot to look for opportunities for peace." Sarah found herself thinking about the bigger picture, about the implications of what was happening in this room and across the galaxy. "Admiral Morrison, Fleet Commander Thekvor, what Dr. Webb is describing, what we've all witnessed here, it suggests that this conflict has been based on fundamental misunderstandings about each other's nature." "Agreed," Thekvor said firmly. "The question now is whether we can move beyond those misunderstandings to build something better." Admiral Morrison nodded. "The Human Colonial Authority is prepared to authorize formal peace negotiations, but only if we can be assured that both sides are genuinely committed to ending this conflict permanently." "And how do we provide such assurance?" Tikfor asked. Sarah looked at Zila K, then at Dr. Webb and Vashtar, then back at the screen showing the two most powerful military leaders of their respective species. An idea was forming in her mind, something that seemed both audacious and completely logical. "By proving that cooperation works," Sarah said. "By showing the galaxy that humans and Zephyrians can be partners instead of enemies." "What do you propose?" Admiral Morrison asked. "Joint stations, joint crews, joint missions to explore neutral space and provide humanitarian aid to species caught in conflict zones. Let both our peoples see what we can accomplish together before they're asked to sign peace treaties." Vashtar spoke up from beside Dr. Webb. "Commander Chin speaks wisdom. Let our actions prove what our words promise." Zila K was nodding enthusiastically. "Fleet Commander, what we have built here on Haven Station in just 3 weeks proves that such cooperation is possible. Imagine what we could accomplish with official support from both governments." Thekvor and Admiral Morrison exchanged a long look across the communication link. Finally, Tikfor spoke. "Admiral Morrison, I propose a joint task force. Equal representation from both species, with a mission to establish cooperative facilities and joint operations in neutral space. Let this task force demonstrate whether our species can truly work together." "Agreed," Morrison replied immediately. "And I propose that Commander Chun and 3rd Commander Zila K be appointed as co-commanders of this task force, since they've already proven that such cooperation is possible." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. "Admiral, I'm honored, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for such a responsibility." "Commander," Zila K said softly, "you changed the course of galactic history with a single act of mercy. If anyone is qualified to lead us into this new era, it is you." Dr. Webb was grinning broadly. "Think about it, Commander. You'll be building something that's never existed before, a truly integrated human-Zephyrian operation. The medical advances alone could benefit billions of people across both species. Sarah looked around the room at the faces watching her, human and Zephyrian alike, all united by the shared experience of learning that their former enemies could be friends and allies. She thought about the children on Kepler Station who had shared their transport space with wounded aliens, about Vashtar working to help human medical researchers, about Zelike risking everything to tell the truth to her own fleet. Admiral Morrison, Fleet Commander Thekvor, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to accept. Commander Zelike, and I accept the appointment. We'll build something that proves to the galaxy that peace isn't just possible, it's preferable. 6 months later, the joint Human-Zephyrian Research Station New Horizons would be operational in neutral space, staffed by integrated crews working on everything from medical research to deep space exploration. A year after that, similar stations would be established throughout the galaxy, each one proof that cooperation could accomplish what conflict never could. But it all began in a moment of impossible choice, when Sarah Chun decided that mercy was more important than military advantage, and Zelike chose to trust enemies who had become friends. Their names would be remembered throughout galactic history, not as conquerors or warriors, but as the two people who proved that sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating enemies, but from turning them into allies. In the end, a single act of mercy had indeed made them legends, not just among humans, but among all the species of the galaxy who would benefit from the peace they helped create. The war was over not because one side had defeated the other, but because both sides had discovered they were better together than apart. And that perhaps was the most human thing of all.